Good afternoon. It is 6 o'clock. It's time for Bike Church. I hope y'all had a good day. I had a real good day. Was able to spend it with my mother-in-law, and we went to church, a local church, and then we went to Brantley and tried the new restaurant down there, and it was very good. If you haven't had a chance to go yet, you need to go and give it a shot. Now, they were slammed, and so they were a little bit slow, and because they also had somebody call in sick, but it was worth the wait. One of the best fried pork chops I believe I've ever had. My mother-in-law said hers was good. The lady that was with us said her food was good. So I was very pleased with it. I'm always glad to see new places to eat open up because we just don't have a lot of selection in the county, and especially down in Brantley. So I was glad to see that they've opened up and are looks like doing gangbusters. So I was glad to see that. I want to let y'all know that I'm glad y'all are here tonight. I've got something to talk to y'all about. Last Sunday. Yeah, last Sunday, we went down and, went to church and had lunch with Jennifer and the baby. My mother-in-law and I did. And the pastor, and I may have mentioned this a little bit last Sunday, so this is an update. But anyway, his main sermon was not about the prodigal son, but he mentioned the prodigal son and talked about him a little bit. That's always been one of my favorite stories in the Bible. I love the prodigal son. There's so much good stuff in there. And throughout the years, I have been in all three places. I have been the prodigal son. I have been the parent who has a child that or family members that you're not in contact with as much as you'd like. And then I have been the older brother. So I can see from all three places. So I think I may have mentioned that last week. Well, he talked about the prodigal son. And I have found out that one of the ways God talks to me in a lot of ways, and I hope he talks to you. If he doesn't, in any kind of way, maybe you need to, I don't know what to tell you. I would suggest doing some prayer and some Bible study to find out why he's not talking to you. He talks to me in a lot of ways. Sometimes he shows me things in the Bible as he does others. Sometimes, and this may sound crazy, but that's okay. I've been called crazy before. Sometimes it's an audible voice. A lot of times he speaks through other people. Most of the time when God wants to show me something or point something out to me, he will have different people in different areas mention things to me, or I will overhear things a couple of times. Usually it's 3 times, but I've gotten to where when I hear something the second time, within a short period of time, I start paying attention because I just about know the third time's coming. So, last Sunday, he mentioned the prodigal son. Well, as I said, I love that story. I've actually started a painting on that story, and I love that story. And I just love it because there's so much there, and every time you read it, you can learn something else. So Monday, while I'm talking to one of my sisters-in-law, I mentioned to them about the prodigal son. She said, "Oh, isn't that interesting?" She said, one of the sermons I heard yesterday was about the prodigal son. Well, ding, the little bell goes off. I say, in my mind, I'm saying, yes, Lord, when I get home, I'm going to get right on that. And so then when I get in the truck coming through town running errands, and I listen to Wow FM, which is out of Bruton. And if you haven't listened to them, you really need to, especially the early morning, I don't know, maybe 6 to 10. I forgot what their names are. It's a lady and a guy, and they're real. If I didn't enjoy listening to it for any other reason, I love listening. It's Brant and something. I can't remember the lady's name, but anyway, she has got the most wonderful laugh I have ever heard. And so I love to listen to them because they play good music. They have a lot of fun, but her laugh is just wonderful. And if I can remember what her name is, I'll tell you. But anyway, so I was listening to them, and something was said about the prodigal son before I could even get home. And I said, Lord, I got that. I'm going home right now. And and I'm going to read the prodigal son again, and I'm going to figure out what it is I'm supposed to get this time. So I go home and I read the prodigal son again, and I'm trying, you know how when you read something that you've read before, sometimes you want to skim and get through it fast. Well, I didn't want to do that, so I was trying to read slow, and I was saying, Lord, show me what it is that you want to show me. So I was trying to read it slow, and I was praying over it, and I was saying, Lord, if there's something extra you want me to see that I haven't been paying attention to, I want to hear what you've got to say, because you're telling me this for a reason. So I pray through it, and I read it, and I think, okay, this is what I was supposed to get. So I've got it now, Lord. I've got it, and I'm going to do better. I'm going to start doing better about what you're trying to tell me, and I'm going to take this lesson to heart. Well, okay. So then, not the next day, but the next day, heard it again. Somebody else brought it up, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, 2 times. Different people heard it mentioned 2 different times. And I'm thinking, okay, Lord, I did not get everything I was supposed to get. I need to go back. So I went back, and I've been praying over it, and I'm studying over it and trying to pay attention and hear what the Lord wants me to hear. And I kind of had a little bit of a not really an epiphany, because it wasn't something I didn't know. It was just he hit me upside the head and say, you're not paying attention. You're not getting this. And so I went back and read it again and studied and repented of what I had been doing and said, Lord, forgive me, which he obviously does when we really ask. I'm repenting of what I've been doing that's causing me to have to read this again. And Lord, help me not to do it anymore. And so I'm thinking, okay, he's really gotten my attention this time. We're good. And so that would have been Thursday or Friday that happened. Maybe Thursday, because Friday I'm listening. I still got my ear out, because I'm thinking, okay, now if I'm still supposed to be getting something, he'll mention it again, and then I'll have to go back. And didn't hear anything Friday, but I'm still pondering it in my head. Didn't hear anything yesterday, still pondering it in my head. Got prodigal son on my mind, trying to make sure that I'm not acting like I was acting, so that I don't go backwards. And so I asked Jennifer, excuse me, I had been telling Jennifer all this, because we get to talk quite a bit, so I'd been telling Jennifer all this. And I asked her, was she working in the nursery in one of the services at her church? She said, no, ma'am, I'm going to go to both services. I said, great. She's just getting started, and I know they've got several, so I guess they probably rotate them around, so the same people are not in there all the time. So anyway, I go pick Miss Doris up. We go to church, have a good service. Nothing is mentioned about the prodigal son, because really, I was expecting that to be the sermon this morning. Because I'm thinking, okay, you think you've got it, but you ain't got it yet. And but that's not what the sermon was about. It was about the journey to the cross, which was an excellent message. And we go and eat lunch in Brantley. And then we go back to Miss Darcy's apartment. It was kind of late, and I wasn't going to make her come out here and walk up and down my steep steps for just a little while. And so we went on over to Miss Darcy's house, and I thought, I know, Miss Darcy don't get to see, she gets to see pictures of Lyra, but a lot of times I will call them on Facebook Messenger so they can, so we can see one another. I talk to Jennifer and the baby several nights a week, so I can see them, usually not but just a few minutes. But we sing and we play patty cake and talk a little bit, and then I've seen them, but I'm keeping my face in front of her. And so I thought, well, we'll call Jennifer and Lyra and see what they're up to. This was middle of the afternoon. And so we got on the phone, and as soon as I got on the phone, Jennifer says, Lyra, look, this is Granny. Granny, come on now and talk to Granny. So we talked to me and talked to Grandmama, and Jennifer says, Mom, I got something to tell you. I said, okay. And she showed me a couple of things. And of course, I've been talking to the baby. She said, guess what got mentioned in church this morning? I said, the prodigal son. She said, yes, ma'am. She said, it wasn't about the sermon, but the pastor mentioned it before he got started. I said, And so you had to come home. She said, oh, God told me to come home and make sure that I told you. So guess what I'll be doing after we get through tonight? But I'm going to read it to y'all because maybe y'all can help me kind of see. Maybe I'll see something new because obviously I'm missing something. And so maybe if I'm missing something, maybe y'all can help me, but maybe y'all will get something you haven't been getting. So I'm going to read the prodigal son, and we're going to figure this out. Now, I will mention that this is found in Luke 15. And I heard some interesting, because I've been studying now, I've been looking at things. A friend of mine mentioned the other night this website I was not familiar with, and it's called Bible, Bible, Ref, R-E-F, which I'm sure is short for references.com. And you can look up verses and you can find all kinds of stuff, find things in context, just all kinds of interesting information that I might not have seen otherwise. So I've been looking there. I've been looking in the Strong's Concordance, looking on other websites, reading it in different translations. But this brought out a good point. There are 3 parables in Luke 15. The first one is the lost sheep, which is where the man has 100 sheep and he loses one of them, and he runs to find that one lost sheep. He leaves the 99 at home. I'm sure he left him in a safe place, but he went to find that one. Now, somebody has made the point that, it might not be a big deal for that shepherd to go after that one lost sheep until you're the lost sheep. So there's that. And then the second parable is called the parable of the lost coin, which is where a woman had 10 silver coins and she loses one, and she goes through her house with a fine-tooth comb. She moves all the furniture. I'm paraphrasing because I don't know how it was back then. But she moves all the furniture. She sweeps under the beds. She goes through I would like going through the cushions on the sofa. I would look under cabinets. I would look in anywhere that there was a surface that coin could fit. But she did that until she found it. And then she runs to her neighbors and says, I found my coin. And in that first one, the shepherd finds the sheep and he goes to his neighbors and he says, rejoice with me, I found the lost sheep. And so, and both of these say, I tell you, in the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels over one sinner who repents. And then that's under the lost coin. In the parable of the lost sheep, it says, I tell you, in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous who don't need repentance. And I'm going to have to look at that a little bit because we all need repentance. We can't base ourselves on our own righteousness. And so I don't know if that's what it's talking about, or 99 truly righteous people who don't need repentance. But neither here nor there. The angels are going to rejoice when sinners come back to Jesus. So now I'm going to read the parable of the lost son, and I'm going to tell you the things that I have learned over the years. Okay, this is starting in verse 11, Luke 15:11. He also said, a man had 2 sons. Now Jesus is sharing these parables. A man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate I have coming to me. Now, in some translations, he says, give me my inheritance. And for a long time, I didn't realize this, but the son was basically saying, I wish you were dead. I wish you were dead so you could just go ahead and let me and get my part of the inheritance. My part of the money, let me have it. Not the land and all that, just want the money, because that's what he was going to get. Give me the share of the estate I have coming to me. So he distributed the assets to them. In other words, now that says them, so he split it up, the money up between the 2 sons. Verse 13, not many days later, the younger son gathered together all that he had, everything, packed his money, his clothes, everything that he owned. And let's be honest now, if he was still living at home, chances are his dad paid for everything that he had. His dad could have said, you've got to get out and not take anything with you other than that money. But he took everything that was his and traveled to a distant country. Now, if you were Jewish back then, there were, and there still are in people who follow the Jewish traditions, laws, or whatever you want to call it. There's certain things they don't do. Their dietary laws. They have to. They're not supposed to eat pork. They're not supposed to deal with pork. There's a lot of other kinds of animals, but pork is absolutely a no-no. It tells in the Bible what they can eat, what they can't eat, because it has to have a split hoof and it has to chew its cud. And the pig didn't fit in there. So they were not to eat pork. They were not to mess with pork. It was just considered unclean. Well, when he left where he lived, he went somewhere where they didn't have those same dietary laws. And so, they had all kinds of animals that they dealt with, ate, and took care of. So it says, he traveled to a distant country where he squandered his estate in foolish living. After he had spent everything. Now, the pastor that I heard last week talk about this brought up some good points, which I had thought about this, but he just made it pretty plain. He said, now I have to be careful because my children are in the congregation, and I don't want to say things too bluntly, but he hired his friends. He hired people to go on dates with him, so to speak, and he hired his friends, and y'all know what that makes them. They were not really his friends, of course, first of all, because he was having to pay them, but he was paying people to be with him. In foolish living. Foolish living. Now, we all know people who live in foolish living. They get their paycheck on Friday, and it's gone by Monday. And I'm not talking about people that get their paycheck and they pay their bills and they're taking care, they've gone to the grocery store Saturday morning, they've bought their groceries and they're doing the very best they can with what they have. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who don't realize how much money they do have and they're wasting it. They're spending on stuff that they don't have to have instead of putting some back in case something happens and they have to have some money. That's what I'm talking about. That's foolish living. That is eating out 3 meals a day when you really don't have the money to be doing that. When you could cook at home you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to go into a lot of detail. You know what I'm talking about. We all know people that are that way, who waste their money. He squandered his estate in foolish living. And after he had spent everything, verse 14, a severe famine struck that country and he had nothing. Now here, all this time, he'd been living it up, probably had a real nice hotel room, so to speak, and was eating off the room service. He was buying everybody's supper. They'd go out at night and he'd pay for everybody's supper. Buying his friends clothes and other things that instead of taking care of his own money and doing what he needed to, he was spending it on other people who were not his friends. So one version of the Bible says riotous living, not just foolish, riotous living. Verse 15, then he went to work for one of the citizens of that country who sent him into his field to feed pigs. When I see that goes back, if he had done what he was supposed to be doing, he wouldn't have ended up feeding the pigs because that was against the law for the Jews. He shouldn't have been out there around the pigs. He shouldn't have been having anything to do with them because they were unclean. And by him messing with them, he was unclean as well. But that was all he could do. He longed to eat his fill from the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one would give him anything. So now I don't know how he's working, if the man was just letting him work there in exchange for a place to stay, and he was just letting him eat whatever he could come across. He wanted to eat the pods, but nobody gave him anything. So I don't know if he ate the pods or what he did. He wasn't eating much, I'm pretty sure. Verse 17, when he came to his senses. Now, again, one of the translations says, when he came to himself. I don't know if you've ever, I have to be careful when I drive if I'm going to a familiar place, like coming home from Montgomery, I had to go Friday. And coming home, I kind of zoned out. I was paying attention to the road and I was driving, but all of a sudden I was way farther down the road than I realized I was, because there was a part of my mind that was elsewhere. But when I came to myself, I realized where I was. And to me, that's like this was. He was kind of in a daze. He was just marking time, taking care of those pigs and doing what he had to do to survive. I'm going to read that again. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food, and here I am dying of hunger?" Now, why did it take him that long? I don't know. Some of us, it takes us a while. And maybe that's part of what the Lord's trying to get me to see, is some of us, it takes us a while to realize how badly we're messing up. How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food? Because he knew his father was a good employer. He took care of the people that lived with him and worked for him. He made sure he was well off, and he made sure that his people had food to eat, clothes to wear, and a place to live. He took care of them to make sure that they were okay. And here I am dying of hunger. I'll get up, go to my father, and say to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired workers." Now, this is something else that I found out. When he wished his father dead, that was very disrespectful. And the father could have had him put to death for being that disrespectful. He brought disrespect to his father and to his family. The boy could have been put to death for that. The father, and nobody would have said a thing. In fact, there's probably people there in town who thought you ought to just go ahead and knock him in the head. And so he doesn't do this anymore, because he's doing nothing but stirring up trouble. But he was going to go home and beg. Let me read that last again. "I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired workers." That's what he planned to say to his dad. So he got up and went to his father. But while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. Now, I don't imagine that it was a coincidence that father saw him coming. I think that dad was standing on the porch, leaning on the railing every day, looking down that road, saying, "Lord, send my child home. Send my child home." And so when he saw him coming, he saw him way off. As soon as he was making a dusty track rise up, he saw him. And he knew that was his son. He recognized the way he was moving, the way he was walking. He knew that was his son, who was dead and now is alive. I mean, I'm sure the dad was looking at it that way. He ran towards him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." Now, here he was ready to work the lowest job that his father had if he would just let him come home and live and have something to eat. But the father told his servants, "Quick, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then bring the fattened calf and slaughter it, and let's celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. The daddy was celebrating. The son was celebrating, but this was the daddy's party. This was the dad's celebration, because he thought his son was dead and really expected to hear every day from somebody saying, "They found your son's body. He was dead." And now, against all odds, his son is home and back in his family. Verse 25. Now his older son was in the field. As he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he summoned one of the servants, questioning what these things meant. "Your brother is here," he told him, "and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound." Then he became angry and didn't want to go in. So his father came out and pleaded with him. But he replied to his father, "Look, I have been slaving many years for you, and I have never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me a goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your assets with prostitutes," you remember what I said earlier, "you slaughtered the fattened calf for him." Verse 31, "Son," he said to him, "you are always with me, and everything that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Now, this parable doesn't end like the two talking about the angels in heaven are going to celebrate, because that father represents God the Father. And when people come back or come to God, God celebrates. He is thrilled to death when one person chooses him, because he's invited all of us. As far as I can tell, he's invited all of us, but we have to accept that invitation. And so those of us who are already saved, we don't need to be looking down on people, because this is a part of what I've kind of caught myself doing. Well, they're getting what they deserve. Well, maybe they are, but you shouldn't wish that on people, because I certainly don't want to get what I deserve, because I kind of got an idea of what I deserve. So I need to remember that God loves those people just like he loves me and you, that he is thrilled to death when one person comes to him and repents and wants to be a part of the family of God. And that's what we're to do too. We are to rejoice. If the angels are rejoicing, we need to be ready to rejoice too. We don't need to be saying, well, they're not doing right and they're messing up and maybe they'll come back to God, but right now they're getting what they deserve, or they're fixing to hit a hard place. We need to be praying for those people. We need to be encouraging them. And where we can, we need to be helping them. Now, I'm not saying if somebody is living a bad lifestyle, you don't need to be giving them money so they can be throwing it away on something else they don't need to be spending it on. That doesn't mean you can't help them. We were having a discussion about people who have children and they don't take care of the children. They spend every penny they've got on alcohol or drugs or other things that are not necessary. And meanwhile, their children they won't feed them at home. They send them to school to get food. And again, I'm tickled to death that the school provides breakfast and lunch for every child that needs it. But if you are late to school, you ought to be able to at least stop at somewhere and get a pack of crackers and a carton of milk or juice or something and give that child something so they don't go into school starving to death. If you can do that, be responsible, be accountable for the kids that you brought into this world. So what our job is to help those that can't help themselves. If we know of a family that mama is struggling, help that mama. If we know mama is not using money wisely, we do things for those children. We encourage them. We take food to them that they can't take back to the store and swap out. Or we make sure that they have clothes that can't be swapped. You know what I'm saying. You buy them a coat at Walmart or whatever, and you take it to them, and then mama can take it back and get the money back. You need to make it in such a way that those kids have what they need, and mama's not able to take it, or daddy or grandmama or whoever's taking care of them. We need to help those children, and we need to help the families. We need to befriend them. And see, I feel like I'm being judgmental again, and I don't mean to. I just know there are situations like this. There's got to be a way that we can help the ones who need help without getting into the thing where we're throwing money at situations that they don't need to be able to have money. There's got to be a way. So now I'm still praying over this. I'm going to read this again. I don't know what the Lord wants me else to get other than we need to be encouraging people. If we've got family members who are not making wise decisions, we need to be praying for them, if nothing else, and be glad when they make good decisions. Help them. I know you can't make somebody make good choices, but help them any way that you can. So I'm glad y'all joined me tonight. I hope y'all got a little something out of it. If you've got any ideas, send me a message. Comment on here. Tell me what your thoughts are, because I know there's a lot in here that we didn't cover. There's a lot of folks that need prayer here in the county and outside. If you don't know anybody else to pray for your neighbors. And if you will talk to God, He will give you some ideas on people to pray for. Just a quick glance through Facebook, and there's lots of people there who share stories about people that are dealing with cancer or dealing with other sickness, or babies coming and having to have surgery when they're just a few days old. All kind of, there's lots of things you can be praying for. And just pray and ask God to show you who else you need to be praying for. I do want to remind you again about that study tool that I found that the pastor's wife told me about, and it's called BibleRef, BibleRef.com. It's a very good resource, and they're always adding stuff to it. So check that out. I will tell you this, my mother-in-law and I went to see Ordinary Angels the other day, and that's a very good movie. If you want to have a good movie to go see, that one was excellent. We went to Montgomery, and it was very good. It's gotten so expensive to go. I try to be careful what I choose. I don't want to waste my money. But we really enjoyed that. It's based on a true story. It's a very good story, and they didn't sugarcoat things. I don't think they tried to make anybody look like heroes who weren't. They just talked about regular people. But it's very good. Ordinary Angels. The lady that's in it is Hilary Swank, and I don't know the young man's name that was the main male character, but it's very good. It's very good. And a lot of other good movies that are coming out. But give that a shot if you go to the movies. Check that BibleRef.com out. I think it'll be a good tool to add to your toolkit for when you're doing Bible studies. And again, if you got any ideas about what I'm supposed to be getting out of the prodigal son, please let me know so I can get it, because I don't want God to keep having to repeat himself. I don't mind him telling me, but I want to get it and him not think that I'm not paying attention, because I am. So anyway, I love y'all, and if I don't talk to you again, I will talk to you next Sunday.